Last week, I played in the Bandai Card Game Fest 3v3 Championship, and I decided to play Black Yellow Moria. And although my match record wasn't all too stellar on the day, going 1-3 in the main event, but X1 in the side events, I think that this deck is so good and so underrated that I wanted to make a video on it anyways. This video is going to be separated into two parts. The first part is going to be me talking about what went up to this decision of bringing Black Yellow Moria, all the decks that I tried playing up until this point, until eventually I settled on Moria, and why it fits so well into my 3v3 team. And the second part of this video is going to be a mini deck rundown. If you're only interested in Black Yellow Moria as a deck, don't really care all too much about my OP15 Journey, which I completely understand, although I will be a little bit sad, you can just skip to that with the timestamps below. But before you do that, let me tell you a little bit about SleeveChief, the sponsor of this video. Because SleeveChief, of course, has these really nice Elite Series deck boxes that can fit in your deck, anything you want, even dice as well. But sometimes you don't want something so big, you don't want something too kind of fancy, I guess. And for people like you who want to have a little bit of fun, why don't you have the China to-go box, because this can fit in exactly one deck perfectly, as well as any sort of leader cases, your Dome cards, or anything fitting nicely into a fun little box. Very safe. I can throw it at anything. I can even throw it at my face, as you just saw, and the deck is going to be fine. My face will not. If you want the highest quality TCG supplies, make sure to use my link in the description below, or my code KAI5 at checkout to get a small discount, and of course, I get a small commission of that. So by supporting my sponsors, and most importantly, getting nice supplies for you as a TCG player, you are also helping me out. Thank you to SleeveChief so much for sponsoring this video, and let's talk about Black Yellow Moria. Choosing your decks for 3v3s isn't just choosing the top 3 off of a tier list. There's a lot of factors that go into choosing your decks for a 3v3, and of course, practicing for them. So the reason why I brought Moria isn't just because I thought it was the third best deck in the meta. It was specifically built and also chosen for 3v3s. I tried a whole bunch of decks. Like I tried Purple Doflamingo, I even tried Red Luffy, I tried Purple Doflamingo, did I just say that? I tried Carrot, Black Yellow Luffy, I tried Blue Yellow Ace, I tried Black Crocodile, but I'll set the stage for you guys. What ended up going down at Bandai Card Game Fest, as well as exactly how I decided to end up playing Black Yellow Moria alongside my team. Most of the time, 1 to 2 decks, usually 2 decks, that are the best decks within the format. And you have to choose the third deck that's going to go alongside them as the one to pick up wins when your first 2 decks don't actually end up winning. So what you want to do in this situation is to choose a deck that has the most similar matchups to the top of the meta. Now, the top of the meta generally would have, like, for example, you have Purple NL, who has a really good matchup across the board, but struggles against Blue Yellow Nami. Hancock as well has a really solid matchup across the board into a lot of random decks, but struggles into Blue Yellow Nami. So the puzzle is to try to find another deck that has a similar sort of matchup spread. A matchup spread that struggles against Blue Yellow Nami, but does really well into the other things. Now, most of the time you think, isn't that just the next best deck in the meta? But the next best deck in the meta would either be Blue Yellow Nami or Lucy, and their matchup spreads are a little bit different. Blue Yellow Nami, of course, is 50-50 into Nami. A lot of it comes down to the dice roll, unfortunately, but has a couple of other bad matchups like Lucy, which aren't necessarily as bad for a deck like Hancock or NL. But so Nami has a different matchup spread from the rest of the decks. So you can get really lucky with your pairings where you just keep hitting your good matchups and your teammate keeps hitting their good matchups. Or you can be really unlucky, where as the Blue Yellow Nami player, you're hitting all of the Lucy's, and the NL player is hitting all of the, like, NL or something. And if you just happen to, like, switch your seats, and it's like, if we were just changing where we were sitting, then we would have just been 9-0. But these are the things that end up happening in 3v3s. It's also the thing that happens in 1v1s, but it's a little bit more apparent in 3v3s. As the third deck, you don't want to have that much randomness because there's already so many random factors. You don't want the seat that you're sitting in to be the other random factor that you end up blaming once you end up losing. So what you want to do is to choose 3 decks that have similar sorts of matchup spreads. Blue Yellow Nami was out of that question, and Lucy as well was a little bit wrong based on things that we talked about as well. So I was trying to find some kind of weird decks that may also fit into that bill. The very first deck that I tried was going to be Carrot. Carrot was the very first deck that I was thinking about for this meta, because I was thinking that Electrical Luna is extremely good in this meta. The idea was that the very beginning of the meta, everyone wants to play the new leaders, and obviously because Bandai has been power creeping the hell out of the game, I was thinking that the most popular decks on day 1 were going to be Yellow Luffy, the Sky Luffy, OP15, Bell Luffy, everyone has a different name for him, as well as Purple NL. Oh, also does very well into Hancock. So the idea was to play Carrot to beat Yellow Luffy, Hancock, as well as Purple NL.
and basically just throw away everything else. And I went to 3v3 on day one, an unofficial 3v3 with a couple of friends down in Kyoto. Fortunately, I didn't end up hitting any of those decks, so I ended up losing. I hit things like Ace, I hit things like Red Green Luffy, I hit things like Kobe, but Kobe was running the 8-cost Smoker and Tashi, which makes his leader 7k. So I was like, dude, come on. Can you please not increase your leader's power? But so Carrot was the first idea that I had that kind of fit this bill. And as people were starting to realize that, like, wait, Blue Yanami's really, really good in this meta, our team had to make the decision. Do we want to choose 3 decks that beat Blue Yanami so that we can guarantee having 1 win? Or are we going to choose 3 decks that lose to Blue Yanami, which guarantees us 1 loss, you know, assuming that they actually end up losing, but guarantees 2 people not hitting Blue Yanami? And we ended up going with the latter. We were going to go, sure, if we hit Blue Yanami, we're going to sacrifice him. The other 2 of us are going to have to win our games. This is how we decided to build our team, which is why I need to find a deck that specifically beat everything that's not Blue Yanami. I tried things like Purple Doflamingo, who surprisingly does pretty well into Blue Yanami. The issue with Purple Doflamingo was that the Purple Doflamingo versus Purple NL matchup was very, very dice roll dependent. Same with the Lucy matchup. Also, if you don't find like 2 Virgos into Lucy, then it gets a little bit difficult as well. There's a lot of things that can go around that matchup. So Purple Doflamingo, while very powerful, overall very solid pick within the meta, a little bit unstable. Yellow Luffy, another option, a deck that does really, really well into the meta as a whole, struggles a lot into Blue Yanami, but it also tends to struggle a little bit into Hancock, because Hancock players have been just healing over and over again, while Luffy can heal as well. And both players have equal sort of resistance to their board being cleared. It's easier for Hancock to actually push over Luffy because she has better trigger, like, in quality. She has things like Gorgon Sister, she has things like Shakuyaku, whereas Luffy, he's generally playing his cards out of hand. 7-cost Robin into the 5-cost Luffy. And so while Luffy has really good cards, generally what ends up happening into Blia Hancock is that both of you are just heal, 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 heal. But eventually, because Blia Hancock has bigger characters, then you can end up getting overrun. When we were testing it, Yellow Luffy was a solid deck that just had a couple too many bad matchups where, like, we expected most teams to have Blue Yellow Nami, and we expected most teams to have Hancock, and if you had a somewhat losing matchup into both of them, made it a little bit risky to bring a deck like Yellow Luffy. So, messing around, I'm also talking to some of my friends. I have a lot of friends on speed dial who have histories of being big meta copers. So I was like talking to these guys. I'm thinking, like, do you have any sort of cope for OP15? Anything that could be good? And this is after I already put out my video saying, like, I played 200 games, 200 plus games of OP15. I was trying to figure out, what do I actually end up playing? Because I've tried Red Yellow Bonnie. It's not really quite right for the way that I like to play the game, and it doesn't really convincingly beat NL in the way that I was expecting it to. Roger as well, I tried that deck, and once again, you get to 9,000 power, but at that point, you're going to be at like 1 or 0 life, and the opponent's character is a little bit too high in power, so not very convincing, though it does have a good Blue-Yellow Nami matchup. I asked these guys, is there anything that I haven't tried that I really should try? And Renee, as well as Abster, which just by saying their names, you probably know what I'm going to talk about, is I should play Moria. And I thought, like, they're kidding. Because, like, Moria has been their cope since the beginning of OP14. I asked them, like, is this a bit? Is it not a bit? Is it actually good? They told me honestly, like, you lose versus Blue Yellow Nami, but you beat, like, basically everything else in the meta. I'm like, that's what I'm looking for. So I play a bunch of Black Yellow Moria. Extremely helpful was the Metafy guide, which I will link in the chat because I'm talking about it, just if you guys are interested in it. So I didn't have all of the cards. I had to borrow a couple of them. So this isn't complete deck lists, but, like, you can see, like, the Hogback's supposed to be at 4. And this should be 4-cost Zoro. What this deck wants to do, you fill up your trash quickly, you try to fill it up with Hogback, Piranha, and Absalom, and you use your lead effect to just keep KOing them, keep getting good on-KO effects, stun the opponent's board with Piranha, play other characters, aerial things like the Piranha, off of Hogback, or get your hand size a little bit bigger with things like Absalom. In the meantime, you want to play things like the 6-cost Moria, which is going to keep playing out these cards. But interestingly, if you will take a closer look at the 6-cost Moria's text, if your leader is the Thriller Bark Pirates type, check, you can play any 4-cost out of your trash rested. Any 4-cost. So this is why some people have been running Kikunojo, for example, in the past. However, we have a new broken 4-drop, which is the 4-cost Zoro. 4-cost Zoro, 4-cost 6,000, on play trash 1 card and heal 1 life is extremely good for this deck specifically because not only does it help you get some cards that are in your hand that you want to have in your trash into your trash, but also gives you more time, effectively giving you a leader effect for 1 card instead of 3 cards while also developing a 4-cost 6,000 power body. This combo of being able to let you heal off of the 6-cost Moria makes so that this Moria is no longer a brick off of the 6/7 Dong turn, meaning that even if you miss out on like the 8-cost Moria or the 9-cost Hancock, you still have a means of healing off of this card, which is really, really nice. Once you have this early game down where you play down, if you're going first, you, for example, want to go like Hogback, Absalom, Hogback, into Moria slash Hancock, or second, you play like one of these guys that drop cards into like a 4-cost, into the 6-cost, into the 8-cost. These top end cards are basically just going to be doing a little bit of what Blue Yellow Nami does, but you'll have a little bit more respect from your opponent, where you just heal every turn, but slowly chip away at the opponent's board. But because you have these really annoying and really sticky characters on the board, like Hogback, Absalom, and Perona, which are difficult to get rid of, just in that people don't really want to get rid of them. And also them being in your trash doesn't mean that they're actually fully gone either. Makes it so that you can be quite aggressive just every single turn, hitting like 6/6, 6/6, 6/6, 6/6, or even like 5/7/7 or something like that, while healing every single turn. And if you do get a little bit scary, and you do have a couple of cards in your hand, you can use your lead effect and heal twice per turn. Just push the opponent's lethal a little bit further away, a little bit further away. Oh yeah, no Borsa. The thing is, so first of all, Borsa is not searchable, which, you know, sure, you can just draw into it, but like by the time like you have such a good curve, you want to play the 6-cost Moria, you want to play the 8-cost Moria, and like the 9-cost Hancock is just more means of healing your life. If instead of 9-cost Hancock or 8-cost Moria, you play the 5-cost Borsalino, what are you going to do with the rest of your 5 Dong? Like, these other cards aren't necessarily that good, and they would have to come out of your hand. But if you were to, for example, play the 8-cost Moria, then you can immediately summon them onto the board, being just the old 8-cost 9,000 Black Gecko Moria in a way. So it's kind of awkward to play Borsalino out of hand, so what you would want to do is to play it out of trash. This deck is really good at filling up trash, so you think that you should probably run the 5-cost Borsalino. But in reality, what ends up happening is that if you have 5-cost Borsalino, you have to run the Quasar. If you run Quasar, well then you want to run Hyori. So then the issue is, this deck doesn't need that many 2Ks, but the 2Ks that it has, Sindri and Kumashi, you can't change these cards. Which means that if you want to add in Hyori, you need to have like 12 2Ks, something like 11 or 12 2Ks, which this deck doesn't need. Quasar, this deck doesn't need because you don't need the plus 3K. So really, if you're adding in these 8 cards, you're just adding it in for the 5-cost Borsalino. So the 5-cost Borsalino, while a very strong card, would force you to add in way too many cards that aren't good for this deck, that therefore I think just not having it is better. Yeah, also, Toland is mentioning as well, the 8-cost Moria trigger plays any 4-cost out of your trash. So if you happen to trigger this off of your last life, then you could play the 4-cost Zoro out of your trash as well. So just this 4-cost Zoro being 4-cost specifically makes it so that it's playable off of your 6-cost Moria, it's playable off of your 8-cost Moria trigger, and in general it's just really, really nice for the deck, making it much, much better than 5-cost Borsalino within this deck, and therefore also much, much nicer on your wallet. The thing is, this deck struggles a little bit into leaders that increase their leader's power. So Blue Yellow Nami as a matchup is difficult. It's not impossible, I'll say. It's not like Hancock versus Blue Yellow Nami level of bad, but it is still bad. Roger is a bad matchup, and Red Yellow Bunny are bad matchups because they can go up to 9,000 power. Like 7 to 8,000 you can still like almost deal with, but like 9,000 power is just like a little bit too high of a wall to actually get over for these decks. I don't think Roger can come back, but Red Yellow Bunny can use Kingdom Come very, very well. So I can think that I would imagine that if Red Yellow Bunny were to come back into the meta, which is weird to say come back, I guess, when it isn't even out in the West. But if that deck were to come back, then I can see this deck being a little bit worse. But this deck has a really good matchup into Sky Luffy because you just permanently stun the 5-cost Luffy with your 4-cost Perona. So it's a give and a take. But this deck is much, much better than I believe that its play rate would indicate. Trying to learn how this deck works, and I realize it's a really fun deck. It's also like, it's very complicated in different ways. Because a lot of times what's complicated about decks is knowing when you shouldn't counter, when you should take life, how to manage your resources. Whereas Black Yellow Moria has no resource management. All of his complexity comes in your leader effect, what you trash, from your board to get your effects, and also when you use your on attack effect where you heal life. So just learning exactly the combos that exist, for example, because the 6-cost Moria can play the 4-cost Hogback, but it plays it rested. So you can go like 6-cost Moria into 4-cost Hogback, then leader effect, kill the Hogback, then play something out active, then get the on-play effect, for example, if it's like Perona, for example. And like this is much better than just playing the 6-cost Moria into the 4-cost Perona, for example. So like lots of small combos that you need to understand as Moria. And then once you get these combos down, and once you sort of understand how to manipulate your trash, what you're looking for within your trash, and what plays are possible, like for example, like we talked about with the 6-cost Moria into the 4-cost Zoro combo to give you 1 life, the deck's like really flexible. You can play aggressively, which is how you play against decks like Yellow Luffy, like Purple NL, like a lot of the decks, basically every deck that's 5,000 power. But you can also play very slowly as well, healing life very slowly, playing for resources. You use your 4-cost Hogback to play the 1-cost Lilith to increase your hand size while also looking for your top end, like the 8-cost Moria, 9-cost Hancock. You chain those together and you slowly push over a deck like Blue Yellow Nami. This deck has a lot of modes where you want to push the game quickly in the beginning, but if that doesn't work, take your foot off the pedal, play the game a little bit more slowly, wait for your 9-cost Hancocks to burn their last life, and then in the end, because of your leader effect, all of your characters on the board are going to be 11,000 power, and you just go like 11, 11, 11, 11, 11, and then they end up just losing. And it's like difficult in a lot of ways, but simple in some other ways too. So it was a lot of fun and a really, honestly, good deck to bring to this event. Is just unfortunately the matchups weren't as I expected. I was expecting to hit the top of meta stuff because, as I mentioned, I think the deck beats NL, it beats Yellow Luffy, it beats Hancock, and it beats Lucy. The Lucy matchup is a little bit closer to 50-50, but it's still winning from my testing. The only matchup that I didn't want to hit was Blue Yellow Nami. So 4 out of 5 matchups I feel fine in. But the thing is, in early rounds, like in Japan, we have these things called landmine players, where they're never going to top because they brought a really bad deck. Let's say Roger. They brought Roger to an event, and Roger gets completely steamrolled by a lot of the meta. They're not going to end up topping the event, but it just happens to be that you hit the one Roger in the room, and that one Roger has a really good matchup into your one deck that you're playing. I didn't hit the matchups that I was looking for, and my teammates were trying to carry me, but unfortunately, they also had a couple of weird matchups as well. So unfortunately, didn't end up going the way that we wanted it to go. I think that if we made it past round 3-0, then we'd start to hit some of those really solid meta decks. But because we couldn't make it to that point, unfortunately, in the end, our team ended up going, I believe, 1-3, which is unfortunate. But in side events, I went 3-1 with Moria. So that was fun, at least. But yeah, that is the story about how I ended up bringing Black Yellow Moria to my event. All the thought process that went into choosing the deck, as well as I played an insane amount of games in the last couple of days. I also played the ranked sim for the first time, just because I needed as many games as possible. And there's a lot of people that were like, "Are you the real iKailaKai?" Which is really nice to hear from you guys. So thank you if you were one of the people. Unfortunately, in the end, it didn't end up working out, but I am still happy with the deck choice. I think that training with how little time I had was very solid. I had a good understanding of the deck despite the limited amount of time that I had. I think it was the correct deck to bring with our team composition. But unfortunately, because this meta is so jungly, you never really know what you're going to end up hitting on the day. And so, unfortunately, though we didn't end up doing too well, I'm still happy that I was able to die together with my friends.